Putin announces the reason why the 64 kilometers long Russian military convoy approaching Kiev withdrew, stating 2 conditions to quell the conflict. The reason why the Russian military convoy approaching the capital Kiev suddenly withdrew. The official online newspaper of the Russian Federal Assembly PNP.ru reported that in an interview with journalist Pavel Zarubin of the All-Russian Central Television and Radio Broadcasting Company, VGTRK, on January 28. Russian President Vladimir Putin announced the reason why Russia withdrew its military forces approaching the capital Kiev, Ukraine, in the spring of 2022. Previously, satellite images released by Maxar Technologies on the evening of February 28, 2022 showed a giant Russian military convoy of more than 64 kilometers long moving along the roads northwest of Kiev. Among them were hundreds of tanks, artillery, armored vehicles and logistics vehicles. We understood that we were very likely to be deceived, the Russian leader said. However, taking into account the risk of serious bloodshed, we agreed to begin withdrawing troops from Kiev by the end of March 2022. Mr. Putin recalled the draft Istanbul agreement that Russia and Ukraine almost reached at the round of negotiations in Istanbul, Turkey in March 2022. Before this, some European leaders in a conversation with me on the phone said that Ukraine cannot sign a peace treaty with a gun pointed at their temple. I replied, okay, what should we do? The answer is that we need to withdraw troops from Kiev. Mr. Putin recalled, in principle, we see clearly that the risk of being deceived is quite possible. Because Russia has been deceived in a similar way for decades. They, the West, say one thing and do another. However, we still agree to this in order to prevent a serious form of war. The Russian leader emphasized conditions for ending the conflict in Ukraine within 1 month. Also in an interview with journalist Zarubin, Mr. Putin stated that Russia's special military operation, SVO, could end within 1 to 2 months on the condition that Ukraine no longer receives funding and ammunition to fight. They, Ukraine, will not be able to survive without Western sponsors, and will not be able to hold out for a month if they run out of money and ammunition. Everything will end within a month and a half, or maximum 2 months, Mr. Putin said. The Russian leader noted that Ukraine's sovereignty is currently 0. He also said he had sent a signal to former US President Joe Biden about a peaceful solution to the conflict in Ukraine. If Ukraine's Western sponsors want peace, the path is simple, Putin said. The Russian president accused Western leaders of persuading Ukraine to continue the war and said that Ukrainian officials, including senior ones, had publicly confirmed this. The Russian leader stressed that any potential peace talks must ensure the security of both Ukraine and Russia from a serious, long-term historical perspective. The point is to sign the final documents. There cannot be any mistakes. Everything must be carefully considered, Putin concluded. Putin had previously said that Russia was ready to negotiate on Ukraine. But Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky himself issued a decree banning negotiations with Russia. The current leadership of Ukraine is illegitimate. This will invalidate any results of negotiations. According to the Ukrainian constitution, the president of Ukraine, even in a state of martial law, cannot extend his term. Only the representative branch can extend his term. That is, the Ukrainian parliament, while the president has a term of office of only 5 years. That's all, Putin noted. In a related move, in an interview on Ukrainian national television on January 28, Ukrainian MP Maria Mezhentseva-Fedorenko said that the Ukrainian parliament, Verkhovna Rada, does not rule out the possibility of lifting the ban on negotiations with Russian President Vladimir Putin. According to her, if the situation requires changes, then such changes can happen.